morning, everyone. It is our great pleasure, our great honor to welcome all of you to Hope Manor 1. Although as our staff here say, it's not Hope Manor 1, it's Hope Manor. Everything else can have a number associated with it, but they say this is the Hope Manor. So we're very, very happy to welcome all of you here today. We're very proud to share this important announcement with the Mayor's office and Mayor Emanuel. But most importantly, we are so proud that Hope Manor 1 is home to more than 80 of our nation's heroes. Hope Manor 1 was one of the first of its kind to offer intensive services and permanent housing to many of our returning veterans and veterans from previous conflicts. And this place represents a place where so many of our veterans who are struggling are working really hard every day to become really positive contributing members of their communities, and we're so proud of them and so proud to share this particular place with you. And I'm so happy to be able to host, along with our board and our staff and the veterans who call Hope Manor 1 home, the mayor. Hope Manor 1, I'm sorry to Sean and Brandon and everyone and Aida. Because the city was such an instrumental partner in making the Hope Manor and Hope Manor 2 a reality. We have tried in some other places to create things of this scale to bring real solutions and resources, big solutions, to our veterans. And in no other city have we been as successful in bringing the size and the scale of resources to our nation's veterans as we have been in the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago has donated in excess of 4 acres of land to give our nation's veterans a place to call home. But between Hope Manor 1 and Hope Manor 2, the city has dedicated more than 4 acres of land to give these veterans a home and contributed more than $15 million in the capital to produce these wonderful buildings and these wonderful campuses to give our veterans a very high quality, dignified, welcoming place to rebuild their lives and to become these wonderful contributing members of society that they're so dedicated to being and have been. So again, we thank you all for being here. We encourage you when you're done to take a walk around and introduce the wonderful men that call this place home and who have contributed to all of us in many ways being here today and ensuring our way of life that lets us all come together on a morning like today. And it is my distinct pleasure to also introduce a great friend of Hope Manor 1, a tremendous champion for the citizens of the 27th Ward, and someone who represents some of the very best in public service, Alderman Walter Burnett.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to welcome everyone to the 27th Ward. It gives me great pride to be here with the mayor today. I think this is wonderful that we're helping our veterans who have sacrificed so much for all of us. Coincidentally, I have an uncle over here. We call him Uncle Norman, and everybody who meet him, because I call him Uncle Norman, call him Uncle Norman also. But he lives here in this building. I have my other uncle, Donald Harris, who's with me. Both of them are Vietnam veterans. Matter of fact, I was just speaking with my uncle, one of my uncles yesterday, and he was just telling me about a new illness that he found that he had from the effects of being at war for us and fighting for our country and for our liberties and our freedoms. So it's only fitting that we do everything that we can to make sure that our veterans have a decent place to live in our society and get all of the resources that they deserve for fighting for the freedoms that we have in this country. And I will continue to do everything I can to help them. And I just want to commend Mayor Rahm Emanuel. Mayor Rahm Emanuel, me being the homeless advocate that I've been for so many years, has been very easy for me to work with. You know, our first meeting that we had, I said, look, Mayor, I don't want to have to fight with you about affordable housing like I did with the former mayor. He said, I don't want to fight with you either. Let's try to work together. And I'm going to tell you, since that time, we have worked on so many new policies in regards to affordable housing for people in the city of Chicago. And he has been very helpful. His staff is very sharp, and they come up with compromising ways to make it work. And I just want to thank him for everything that he has done for the people of the city of Chicago dealing with homelessness, but also I'd like to commend him for all of the leveraging that he does. I don't think anyone else could do the leveraging that Mayor Rahm Emanuel have done in regards to helping people with affordable housing. And we're not just talking about federal government, leveraging money just from the federal government, leveraging money from private industries, leveraging money and resources from wherever he can to help the people of Chicago. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Morning, everybody. Got in the moment there.
I just see your book was covering it.
Thank you.
It was a pop quiz.
Morning, everybody. I'm John Pfeiffer, the first Deputy Commissioner of the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, and of course, special thanks to our hosts, Volunteers of America, for having us here at Hope Manor. And especially to all the residents of Hope Manor, thank you for welcoming us into your home. Chicago's efforts to prevent and end homelessness are guided by a document called Plan 2.0. Under Mayor Emanuel's leadership, we created a plan over the course of 8 months back in 2012, involving more than 500 stakeholders in an ambitious effort to create a broad-ranging plan looking over 7 years of activity. Plan 2.0 focuses on homelessness prevention, housing first, and wraparound services, while also identifying new strategies to create access and opportunity for people who are facing homelessness, who are most in need. In the first 2 years of the plan, I'm happy to say that we've made great strides forward in achieving many of the plan's goals, including funding for this development, funding for 2 new veteran supportive housing programs, the next generation of this beautiful residence, Hope Manor 2, a campus down in Englewood that will provide 73 housing units, and the Veterans New Beginning residence in Auburn Gresham, which will provide 54 housing units. We funded the first new domestic violence shelter in more than a decade that's now under construction. We've housed 262 homeless families through a new program called the Rapid Rehousing Program that provides short to middle term rental assistance and supportive services. We launched the Homeward Bound program to help as many as 100 chronically homeless people move off the street and into housing with support in a great collaboration with the Chicago Low-Income Housing Trust Fund and the Center for Housing and Health. And we've funded 74 new shelter beds, year-round shelter beds for homeless youth, and a network of 4 drop-in centers that provide intensive services to youth to help them stabilize. And we're focusing on runaway youth, LGBTQ youth, pregnant and parenting moms. More than 1,500 youth a year will benefit from these services. So we've been busy. We have not been taking it easy. We've been moving fast forward on the plan's very ambitious goals. Another of Plan 2.0's goals has to do with veteran homelessness. Plan 2.0 and the Federal Hearth Act call on Chicago to improve methods to more appropriately match services to people as they come into our homeless services system. We call this coordinated access. Think of it as a more effective front door to our system. Chicago's efforts to achieve coordinated access were fast-tracked recently when we were invited to participate in the 25 Cities Initiative, a collaborative effort sponsored by the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. The goal of the 25 Cities Initiative is to help communities accelerate their progress on coordinated access with an eye to ending veteran homelessness and chronic homelessness. Chicago's 25 Cities leadership team includes representatives from All Chicago, the Chicago Planning Council on Homelessness, the Corporation for Supportive Housing, the Chicago Housing Authority, the Department of Family and Support Services, HUD, and the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center. To do this work, a community team comprised of service agencies, veterans, government agencies, and other people with lived experience of homelessness was convened. In our first 100 days, the team has made really significant progress on key components of a coordinated access system design, including, first, testing a new standardized assessment tool to better match appropriate resources and interventions with households as they enter our homeless services system. And secondly, making better use of information technology so that we can track a household from the point of assessment to the point of housing placement, ultimately helping them make the connection to housing and forward stability. So we are very pleased to be working very closely in this effort with the VA And it's now my pleasure to bring up Ann Brown, the director of the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center, to say a few words.
Well, good morning. I will be brief. On behalf of the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center, it's my pleasure to be here today with you to be part of Mayor Emanuel's initiative to end veteran homelessness in Chicago by 2015. A special thanks to all the veterans in the room, to all of our local officials and community partners who are with us here today. Within the VA, we strive to embody the I-CARE initiative. I standing for integrity, C standing for compassion, A for advocacy, R for respect, and E for excellence. And certainly the partnerships that go on is we all work together to end veteran homelessness as spouses those initiatives. So we at Jesse Brown recognize that we can't solve veteran issues within the four walls of our medical center. And that's why we need the collaboration and the partnerships that we have here today. And the 25 cities is a great example of that, and we're proud to be part of that. We all understand that there are times when we all need a little more assistance as we go through life, and we work very hard with everyone in this room to help with that. And in this facility, the new facilities that are coming on board with the city, what we're doing with the county and all of our catchment area here in the Chicago and Northwest Indiana area are examples of how we're reaching out and trying to expand our footprint and bring community partners in to help us address homelessness within our veteran community. We have, at this point, about 700 HUD-VASH vouchers where we rotate veterans through. We have about 170 more coming this year to assist in this program. And today is just one more example of how we're putting veterans first in the Jesse Brown VA Medical Center. So thanks for being here today to help us at Jesse Brown help the community to address veteran homelessness. Now the best part of my presentation is to introduce the next speaker, who is a shining star from Jesse Brown. Tamara Cook came to Jesse Brown for some of her medical issues when she got out of the military. She came to Jesse Brown and then learned about a HUD-VASH program. When she went into HUD-VASH, she also was working on her employment skills through one of the programs we have at the VA called Compensated Work Therapy. Got through that program, was able to work in the private sector, and go to school, get her degree, and now I'm most excited that she's back working at Jesse Brown as a peer support specialist, which is a tremendous program because who can better talk to veterans about what they're going through than those who have been through the program already. So I'm turning it over to you. You're going to be great. Thank you.
My name is Tamara Cook, and I am a United States Navy veteran. After my enlistment, my daughter and myself were homeless. With the support of my family and VA services, HUD-VASH, I was able to obtain permanent housing. In the midst of obtaining my permanent housing, I was able to pursue a degree. I have a bachelor's in community psychology from DePaul University. After obtaining my degree, I had time to calm down and think about what it was that I really wanted to do, because now that you have housing, you have other obstacles that come in your way. I utilized the VA once again, and now I'm a VA employee working in the HUD-VASH department as a certified peer support specialist at Jesse Brown VA. I want to thank you for listening to my story. I'm one of thousands who have utilized these services, and with your support, we can continue to use them. And now it is my pleasure, and please help me join Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Do me a favor and give her another hand. She was nervous, I will just tell you. The press conference is nothing like 4 years in the Navy. from the Navy. Let me, I do want to say to everybody out here that's part of providing services to our veterans, whether it's Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, Korea, to all the folks up here who also lead those efforts on behalf of the entire city of Chicago, and I would also say on behalf, can't speak for everybody in the United States, but I want to say thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. Making sure anybody who comes home, we all know about the difficulties, that they get a fresh start. We're talking about a program, but it's also about where we are as a country, where we are on our values. And the reason Nancy was talking about Hope Manor 1 or 2 is about 2 weeks we're going to cut that ribbon on Hope Manor 2. And it's going to be a unique piece of housing because it's the only place in America, I think, that actually will be housing for veterans' families. So not just the individual, but for folks with families. Thanks for that thumbs up back there. But it will be unique in the country. And it's a down payment upon what everybody, Ann, Nancy, Walter, and Tamara talked about, which is to make sure any veteran, having fought for the homeland, is not homeless when they come home. And we laid out a plan to make sure that we eradicate homelessness in the city of Chicago for 7 years. And the first group that will see homelessness eliminated will be the veterans of the city of Chicago. And we could not do this, and I want to say, while the President, the Vice President, First Lady, Michelle Obama, and Jill all worked on this, the implementation, they're putting 80% of the resources. We in the city of Chicago, for those that don't fit as veterans in any one of the categories, will finish the job. There's about just shy of 1,000, called 800 veterans we count, a little shy of that. We will finish the job and make sure that every veteran has a roof over their head. And we all know, beyond the roof, is all the things that Tamara talked about. Tamara said I was going to put a slight accent on that. And that is, there's all these other services that come with that. The wraparound services, whether they're educational, support services, other types of benefit. A roof is just one piece of that strategy. There's a reason we talk about a GI Bill. It comes with education, it comes with housing. It's the same effort, and we were talking about this just slightly earlier. City colleges in the city of Chicago, now that we've re-engineered them, refocused them on careers. If you served in an emergency room in Afghanistan or Iraq, you get credit for that class, because that's an unbelievable class you just did. You were a truck driver, you have a CDL in our book. You already get credit for that. You don't have to repeat those courses. You don't have to pay for those courses, because what you did in Iraq and Afghanistan gives you first-hand knowledge of what you need to know if you choose to do truck driving, if you choose to do healthcare or nursing or some aspect of that profession. In that same way, a couple weeks ago at 1871, which is our innovation center in the Merchant District, we started what's called the bunker to help veterans with their small businesses and getting loans they need to get their ideas off and started. Housing is a piece of that overall strategy, from education to loans and capacities to set up your own businesses, and making sure our veterans know that when they come home to the city of Chicago, we have a welcome mat that says, welcome home. And you're going to have a house. And you think about the story that was just told. Serving your country in the Navy, which for Alderman Suarez will be a problem because he's a Marine. But the fact is, you're a mother and a daughter and you're homeless. You served your country. And without a house, to the idea to start thinking about education, all the other things that you need, the house is the primary place where you can gather yourself and again, as you said, start to address all the other challenges and opportunities that you have. And I'm proud of the city of Chicago, as part of these 25 cities, and I was mentioning to the folks here from the regional office, I emailed former Secretary of Housing, Sean Donovan, because we talked about this about 8 months ago, that the city of Chicago is going to follow through on its commitment. And by the end of 2015, there will not be a homeless veteran in the city of Chicago. Eliminate homelessness, you can actually say, welcome home. You can actually see that. And then our mission is not done. And there are other things we're doing, is we've made a down down payment. We got to support housing and services for about 200 adolescents, and then 4 regional offices to help them with what are called wraparound services, whether they're educational, other types of needs that need. So on this overall 7-year effort, we will step by step make sure that we in the city of Chicago, whether you're a veteran or another type of individual, if you're homeless, we will make sure you have a roof over your head. And I'm proud that the first community that we're actually addressing and can say will not be homeless. We, the veterans of our battlefield that have served their country valiantly, put their lives on the line, and we actually put our resources to play to make sure that they have a roof over their head. With that, I'll take questions. Jay, you're fresh from Scotland.
Little R&R, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
I've noticed that since you were there, the vote for separation got a lot tighter. I don't know if you can separate your attendance and the vote getting tighter, but I did observe.
I've been lobbying, but that's off the record.
Well, clearly quite effectively.
You don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
lobbying. The $5 million you're talking about, and the nearly 1,000 homeless veterans in Chicago by your account, will that $5 million house or contribute to the housing for all those 1,000 veterans? And what kind of success have we had so far in the other piece of the puzzle, jobs for returning veterans?
Well, I think we'll do a couple things. Without a doubt, as I said in my remarks, without the $5 million from the federal government, we would be $5 million short. It will take about to deal with or address about 80% of the problem. There's about, this was a survey they did, that is Department of Family Services, Social Services. There's about 800 homeless veterans in the kind of census. The amount of money we will put up will finish that job so that all veterans will have a roof over their house. It complements whether it's Hope Manor, Hope Manor 2, and the facility in Auburn and Gresham. So in the next 5 months, we'll be adding another 127 units of housing. So all of that comes into play at every aspect. It could not be done just straight up without federal government $25 million. But I didn't want to say we were 80% of the way there. With additional resources, we'll finish the job, and everybody will have a roof by the end of by December 2015. There's a series of services, and this is where, I don't want to say this, but literally the reason we have so many people standing up there, because you have the VA, you have the community colleges, you have a series of different aspects that associate with the educational benefits and social services. What we did at 1871 is totally separate, but as part of an overall strategy, there are some veterans that want to get ready and go, and they have a business idea. That doesn't mean we're the only source for that type of innovation, but there's a place to work with that. The community college system and that strategy was an important part of making sure people got credit for what they really did, whether it was driving a truck, nursing in the ER, or whatever else they did, that they don't have to repeat that class because they could probably teach it, given what they saw in Afghanistan and Iraq. In addition to that, there are different departments, and I cite the CTA as one, that provide a tremendous outreach on job opportunities for veterans as well. We have that throughout the city of Chicago.
Baseball season is about to end too early here. But the Cubs have decided to go ahead and start construction before the lawsuit by the Blue Sox is resolved. Is this such a good idea?
The way you ask that, well, I do think this, as you know, I believe we worked out what I think is a win-win strategy for both Wrigley Field to modernize it, create economic opportunity, and also for relief. Prior to the agreement, there was no transportation plan, no overall security plan, no investments in the nation. The Alderman was a strong advocate for that. And so they're going forward based on a comprehensive plan. As you know, I think about 4 weeks ago, we broke ground at a new playground, a commitment that ownership made that they were going to invest in that neighborhood, in that area. And it's going to be a great playground and community investment, and that's part of being a good neighbor that's required part of the agreement. Whether it's the right thing based on lawsuit, I think they're going to step forward, but across the waterfront, not just there. They are going to start construction at Wrigley Field, the modernization, but also at the school playground, making their investment live up to their commitment they made at the takeover to the entire package, both for Wrigley Field and for the neighborhood of Wrigleyville.
So you're happy to see the Cubs go ahead?
Well, I'd like them to go ahead all the way and win. That's my first choice, but that doesn't seem to, nobody seems to be listening. But the good news is there's a mentoring program called the Jackie Robinson West, and they can go over there and study. So and I think there's something they can learn there. So, but that's Marianne.
Thank you. Of course, we want to know from NBC about Jimmy Fallon. What's the latest that you're hearing? Is he really going to come and do the show?
I don't know. You're from NBC. You would maybe. Let me say this: if you really want to know, I would just say go to hashtag Tonight Show Shy and call on him to come. I do believe this. One, given that the kids read 2.1 million books and you jumped in the lake at 32 degrees, bringing your show here when it's closer to about 82 degrees is much easier. And the good news is the children of the city of Chicago, our librarians, our camp counselors at our park district, they read 2.7 million books. And all of them should be given a hand for actually setting a record. I would say two things. I think Jimmy Fallon will be a man of his word when he comes here. He came here as a man of his word that if the kids read more than 2 million books, he will come and jump in the lake, also raise money for a good cause, which will help for the Special Olympics. He made, you were there, you saw it. I don't know if you stayed up that late or TiVoed in and then watched it later. But he made a play to the kids read more than 2.4. He tried to set the bar at 11 million. I thought that was a little of a stretch. But they read 2.7 million books, and I believe he'll, since 1998, the Tonight Show hasn't been here to Chicago. Bring it back and set a goal for the kids. The kids not only met the goal, they exceeded it by close to 3 million. The other thing is I can say, this is an addition, so I do think Jimmy Fallon will be here. The city of Chicago launched 2 years ago the Summer Learn, where our kids not just relaxed, but they also read. We set goals for them on reading. They've exceeded it each year. If imitation is the best sign of flattery, Los Angeles is now copying the city of Chicago's Summer Learn. The city of Pittsburgh copying the Summer Learn. Dallas copying the Summer Learning. Cities across the world, there's about 5 or 6 copying the Summer Learning. A lot of people have studied this or analyzed this summer slide where kids roll back academically in the summer. The city of Chicago is addressing it and bringing all the resources of its park districts, its libraries, its museum campuses to bear on an academic problem to make sure our kids don't slide in the summer. And for that, Jimmy Fallon will bring his show finally home to the city of Chicago. And if you want to weigh in, any veteran, you got a free moment, anybody, just go ahead. Tonight Show, Shy, but I think he'll do it because it's a lot easier to move the show than jumping in the lake.
UIC and the University of Chicago would be the final round for selection for the Obama Library. Earlier you've been talking about kind of a unified city pitch for this. How encouraged are you that it's going to be, that it might be one or the other, and should it be kind of a unified pitch at this point?
Well, it's so funny. Here's the way I look at it, Greg. There's 4 sites, and 2 of them are in the city of Chicago, so we have a 50% average. We have a better than, even in my view, chance. There's one person that's going to make the decision, it's the President of the United States. I think the only thing I care about as mayor is in the city of Chicago. It's a tremendous economic, educational, cultural win for the city of Chicago. And the President obviously has deep roots. Michelle has deep roots. He started his political career here. It makes perfect sense for the city of Chicago. And that's my first priority, because of all the benefits that will accrue to the city as a whole and the communities that it will be in.
You were talking about kids, so you have a comment about the boy who brought a gun to school in the South Side? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
You were talking about children a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Do you have a comment about the boy who brought a gun to school in the South Side?
Yeah, but I got that part. Well, I have a comment about, first of all, guns do not belong in our schools. Studying belongs in our schools. And the good news is for the city of Chicago is that we are making gains on that as an educational, overall education. We had a record graduation rate last year. We're on our way to 82%. We've made record gains in second and eighth grade, where now a majority of our kids are meeting or exceeding the national standards on reading that. Guns and violence of any type don't belong in our schools. And I think that is the idea that a 9-year-old will have access to them speaks to a larger challenge we have specifically. But I know what our schools are for. There's a place for study, and kids should be, and families should be secure in the knowledge that their children are safe. Right?
Mayor, why are you forging ahead with 40% cutting the retiree health, or rather an increase for the retiree premiums at a time when you have a lawsuit pending, when you had an adverse Supreme Court ruling that could also go against the city in the same way?
Well, first of all, friend, let me dispute about whether you're on that number, but let me say this. From working for President Clinton and President Obama, my whole public life and also in Congress was about expanding people's and individuals' access to health care and coverage, whether for negotiating for President Clinton, the creation of the Children's Health Care Plan that gave 10 million children whose parents worked but had no private plans, health care coverage, and helping President Obama. It was expanded, and it was the second bill he signed into law as President of the United States, and then helping him negotiate and create the universal coverage. Here in the city of Chicago, our oldest retirees will have no changes. Second, there will be no changes to any prescription drugs benefits. Third is around 36% of the folks can actually access a plan that we're offering them more choices that are less in premiums. So that is all the other benefits. On the legal aspect, the case that you're talking about is down in Springfield. It doesn't reflect or impact the case that's in the federal court for the city of Chicago, which is a core-child class. And that's totally different legally. And fourth, let me say something overall about the budget. I said early on that we were going to make the hard decisions, which brought our structural deficit down by half, so we can make critical investments, which is what we're doing today, eliminating homelessness for veterans. And if we're willing to make the hard decisions, not defer them, not deny them, and not delay them, but make the tough decisions, we'll be able to actually then start to make some of the investments that we have for a long period of time put off. This is one of those examples. The other is also, as we've done on early childhood education, and pre-K, to make sure that we will also be able to make sure that every 4-year-old that lives at Harvey will have pre-K education, because it will complement the universal kindergarten we also did. So my view is, legally they're totally different, and we kept in and invested in strong benefits like prescription drug coverage that will continue, more options in healthcare coverage so you can actually see a cut or a lowering of your premiums, and making sure that our oldest retirees have no changes at all.
After Theo already announced his campaign, your campaign released a statement saying he lacks back on decisions. Why do you think that's the case?
I think when I look at this, and I think the tough decisions and what we have is, what's tough was when you didn't have a universal kindergarten for every child in the city of Chicago. Half our kids would only get 2 hours a day, and parents couldn't go to work. What's tough is when you had the shortest school day and the shortest school year in America. It was tough on the children of the city of Chicago. What's tough is when you had a community college system that had a graduation rate at 7%, the lowest in the country, and now it's doubled it. What's tough is when you had more companies and people leaving. Because we made the hard decisions to make reforms and make investments, Chicago is #1 in the United States for new corporations to relocate. Chicago last year was #1 for people moving back into the city after a decade of people leaving, and companies leaving. We're leading the country in both companies moving and people moving back into it. Because we were hard and we made difficult decisions, every child now has universal kindergarten. Our graduation rates are no longer anemic or stagnant, where almost half our kids are dropping out. We set a record at nearly 70% of our kids graduating, and we're on our way to 84%. And I think you have to be willing to make the hard decisions to not only reform when you need to reform, but invest where you need to invest, so no veteran who comes home from either Iraq or Afghanistan doesn't have a roof over their head.
Mayor, yesterday there seemed to be a discrepancy between your office and the convention of editors that were in town. The convention said that they were blindsided by your outlets. And I'm sorry. Asked me at Hyatt yesterday, and a spokeswoman for you
I don't know
yesterday.
what
The editor.
Oh, the editors?
Right. They said, the spokeswoman for you said that actually it was never on your schedule. Do you know the discrepancy?
You can look at the last person who knows anything about their schedule is me. But what I would do is refer to the office, but I don't think we ever confirmed or anything because we had a full day on that base. Jay?
Mr. Mayor, just what are you accusing Alderman Fioretti of lacking
I wasn't.
backbone, your campaign? Just what are you accusing him not having backbone to support?
What I'm saying is that we're tough. We take the city of Chicago years ago and not had, in my view, delayed, deferred, and denied that we had certain challenges. I don't think the city of Chicago should have had a system where half our kids had 7-hour-a-day kindergarten and half our kids only had 2 hours.
And you're saying that he is part of city council, he is part of city council contributed to that?
We didn't do it, and we did not, we allowed that problem and that challenge to persist. We made the decision to reform the budget at CPS and invest in universal kindergarten. So, straight back. Second, we allowed a community college system that had the worst graduation system. Since then, we've doubled it, and it's on its way to tripling, and we're actually providing people a college education that gives them a career and a good-paying job. We finally actually have made reforms to our budget where we've cut our structural deficit in half in 3 years that we inherited, that was built up through a period of time of postponing dealing decisions. And because of those decisions, you now have the resources to actually address a problem that we all used to talk about, which is homelessness among our veterans.
So you're saying that he and all the other aldermen, including those stand behind you, were part of the problem, not the solution?
I actually said, here's the problems we had, and here are what we've done to address them. I think you can speak to that. And the question is, it's not just what we addressed. And on a series of things, our problems had grown to a point that they were actually starting to weaken our strengths as a city.
Mr.
I don't,
Mayor,
I'm going to finish one second here, and I'll be right back. Okay. We were a city that were nearly half our kids used to drop out of our schools. And in a short period of time, a lot of work was done in the departments. We now have nearly 70%, we're on our way to 84%. That means 84% of our kids have a future they look forward to. And I won't settle until 100% of our kids are graduating. We used to also be a city where half our kids did not get a full school day of kindergarten, and no mother whose child's only getting 2 hours of kindergarten can find a job that lets them off at 11 o'clock for a pickup. So not only did the child get shortchanged, so did the parent. And we persisted and allowed that problem to persist. We also had a community college system that was kind of your last steps in remedial education rather than the first step on the way to a career. We now have a community college system, Kennedy King, that's been nominated as one of the best in the country by the Aspen Institute. We had more corporations and more people leaving. Why are more corporations now coming back to the city of Chicago, where it's now #1 for corporate relocations? And why are more people coming to the city of Chicago than leaving as #1? And part of that reason is because Chicago is actually facing up to its challenges, investing in its opportunities, and not backing away from them. And that was the results were about a set of politics and policies.
Standing in the way.
Last question.
I just addressed the question this way. You guys can draw it.
Last question. On that same vein, there are going to be some who are going to say, because of mental health measures that took place with your administration, that perhaps this veteran homelessness problem wouldn't have existed in the numbers that it is today.
What I would say, Marion, is like other places, we've actually expanded coverage. And Dr. Shakir, testifying 2 weeks ago, the City Council spoke about psychiatric care and other places where we've actually not only have added a whole new benefit, which we talked about for years, but because of our past politics, we never made the investment. We brought reforms, and now I think it's close to about 500 individuals are getting psychiatric care, a benefit we never provided. And in addition to that, more people are being able to see our neighborhood community mental health benefits and use and take advantage of the additional benefits that come in mental health that President Obama's health care plan actually provided.
Can you comment, sir, on
No.
the principals who have complained about the filthy condition of the schools?
Sure. We made all these educational gains. Increasing graduation rate, increasing test scores, increasing attendance, and we're not going to be satisfied. Airmat job is to clean the schools so our principals and our teachers can focus on their fundamental responsibility, education. They will either live up to that contract and clean up the schools, or they can clean out their desks and get out. And I know that David Vitale's been in contact with them, told them they have to step up and meet the letter as well as the spirit of that contract, and that's what will happen.
So are
Thank
you
you.
pretty disgusted